I asked you all to leave your manifestation questions and law of assumption related questions on my last video. And today we're going to cover all of them. So today's topics that we're going to cover include dealing with 3D, so circumstances, things like this, and what to do and how to approach it. We're going to be dealing with specific persons, or in other words, SPs. And we're even going to touch on some third party. And the other thing that we're going to touch on is going to be general information. But on top of that, it's general information that you can apply specifically towards circumstances and things like that. So we're just going to dive right into it. And if you want any of your questions answered, feel free to leave them in the comments below or in the next video that I drop. And then that way I'll go back to both of those and I'll grab them and answer them in the next Q&A I do, which will probably be soon. So here we go. Here's the first question. So the first question that somebody asked me was, "Hi, Michael, can I ask how to get rid of circumstances we don't like or want? Example, third parties." So, okay, let's just dive right into it, right? Third parties. So when you want to get rid of circumstances you don't like, specifically with the example of third parties, the thing that I always tell clients to do is, number one, what do all the greats teach us about problems and how to get them to kind of dissolve? And they all tell you that taking your awareness off of the issue is the number one thing that we should be doing, on top of changing the beliefs that we hold about our reality and also the beliefs we hold about that person, right? If we continue to do techniques to try to embody a state, but then we spend equal or greater time returning to the opposite as well, the opposite story, meaning you continue to feel bad that your person is with someone else, you continue to be upset, you continue to go back to the old story. In other words, you haven't forgiven them. Then guess what's going to happen? You're going to stalemate yourself because you're doing 50-50 on both sides, right? So what can only happen when you do that? Of course, you're not going to get what you want, and you're going to get exactly what you are instead, right? And what you are in those moments is someone that's trying to do techniques to get rid of the third party, and that's the awareness you continue to go back to. So number one, you want to take your awareness off the third party. So every time you catch yourself worrying and being upset and thinking about the third party, I want you to ask yourself, does it benefit you logically to continue viewing your person from that story, that they're not yours and you're trying to get them? Is that benefiting you in any form? From 0 to 100%, what's the benefit? The answer is 0, right? And we know that it's not helping us. Then what's the point of doing it? And that's when you start looking at things and reminding yourselves that it's not about trying to do processes to get out of something, because what you're doing is you're returning to the state of, I'm trying to get out of this and change this. No, your job is take your awareness off the problem. What would you rather have instead? You would rather have that person not in their life, and you would rather that person, meaning the SP in this example, is your person in your life. They're yours. You guys are in love. You're happy. You're living that relationship that you dream of, that you want so much. And that's where you put your focus. That's the whole point of dying to the old self. That's what dying to the old man refers to, right? You die to your old self, your old version of you that was identified with, this is my problem, so I'm going to do these techniques and watch all these YouTube videos, and then I'm not going to live by anything in them, and instead I'm going to just try to feel good here and there, and then, wonder where the results are. And what we should be doing is just understanding that, hey, it's just a gentle little push that we do where we kind of observe, hey, wait a minute, I realize I'm returning to the old story, and therefore my awareness is continued on the problem. Let's stop that, and let's focus on the solution. What solution would we rather have instead? And then we start applying the other concepts that I've, talked to you guys about, especially in my last video, which I'll probably link somewhere on the screen. If not, it'll be in the bio down below. But I broke a lot of these concepts down for you guys in the last 2 videos, right? And that's what you have to remember in those moments instead, when you are aware that you're keeping your awareness on the problem. So to kind of summarize it, take your awareness off the problem, practice putting it on the solution time and time again. And the more you practice that, and then the more you practice getting engaged with it. In other words, you step into that thought, you experience that reality, you experience the moment you wish to have instead. That's when you are going to start getting rid of the problems, and you're going to start noticing changes within your reality because you've changed yourself. Okay? So if that, and by the way, if that confused anyone, or there's anything that I said regarding that confused you, feel free to let me know and I'll kind of clarify it in the comments for you. But I think that was pretty clear. And on to question number 2. So the next question is, what are my thoughts on BBLs? I recently learned that it wasn't something Neville ever talked about, but it's often attributed to him. So many coaches talk about it, but I'm not sure I buy into the idea. I would love to hear your thoughts. Okay, so there is a lot to actually say on that topic. And where do I even begin? First things first, there's already some quotes that I want to kind of touch on, right? But for example, you've all heard, or at least majority have heard, signs follow, they do not proceed, right? And that's what we're going to touch on. And then I'm going to give you my opinion on this stuff, right? So first I'm going to give you guys some Neville quotes, and they're all regarding signs, but notice the pattern, right? And let's see what we can take away from it. So the first things first, it says, signs follow, they do not precede. Proof that you will follow the consciousness that you are, it will not precede it. You are an eternal dreamer, dreaming non-eternal dreams. Your dreams take form as you assume the feeling of their reality. Do not limit yourself to the past. Knowing that nothing is impossible to consciousness, begin to imagine states beyond the experiences of the past. Whatever the mind of man can imagine, man can realize. So right there, it's telling you you're not going to see or be anything unless you're already it, right? And therefore, you're not going to see any signs until you've become it. And there you'll start seeing the changes and the signs, right? So the quote number 2 is going to be, consciousness is the way or the door through which things appear. He said, quote, I am the way, not I, John Smith, am the way, but I am the awareness of being is the way through which the thing shall come. The signs always follow. They never precede. Things have no reality other than in consciousness. Therefore, get to consciousness first, and the thing is compelled to appear. You are told, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all things shall be added unto you. Get first the consciousness of the things that you are seeking, and leave the things alone. This is what is meant by ye shall decree a thing, and it shall come to pass. So, right then and there, same thing, right? It's telling you the exact same story. It's telling you when you claim something, things are going to happen afterwards, right? You're not going to get signs until you become the person, right? So third quote and last one, and then I'll give you my thoughts, and then we'll go to the next question. So, and by the way, this is a topic I get asked about so often in coaching, actually. So it's that you asked it. So just understand that a lot of people, they'll be like, okay, if you're, when you see things that are related to manifestation, that's BBL, that's a sign. And I really don't know where that like term came from. I mean, like, I don't know why it's so popular, I should say. But at the same time, I kind of understand. It's just anyone that really studies the law from the proper, or for like the older sources, like I call it like the ancients, whatever you want to call it, or source material. Those are the only people I learn from, like the only greats I learn from, right? Like, if you know me, I don't study modern day people today, right? I truly don't feel that anyone alive today is going to know more than what these ancients knew. And that's why I stick to what I consider the best sources of information. But a lot of them talk about, not change, like not seeing changes until you've changed yourself, right? So that's why for me, I'm kind of like surprised that it's so common where that isn't even talked about like as a mainstream thing. And a part of me wonders if it's just because a lot of people don't read. And then the other part of me is like, I get it though, because I can see from a perspective of someone that hasn't studied these things and spent years reading and taking notes and practicing things. I can kind of see how it makes sense when you're told, if you start doing techniques and you start seeing things, then that's signs that it's going to come. And I get it. And if that works for you, then continue it. I'm not going to bash it. But just for me, it's like I kind of stick to what I've been mentioning, right? So just remember that. But anyways, on to quote number 3. And this is kind of what I'm mentioning, where it's all about like changing first and then the 3D catches up. So the next one is, it is impossible for the poor man to find wealth in this world, no matter how he is surrounded with it, until he first claims himself to be wealthy. For signs follow, they do not precede. So once again, same quote, right? Signs follow, they do not precede. He's telling you, all these quotes are telling you, you have to become the person first, and then you will get the results. And that's why he's saying they follow, they do not precede, meaning they follow the change of your self-concept, of your beliefs, because that's what self-concept is. And that's what he's referring to. And a lot of people, they look at it like, oh, I'm still working, I'm still changing things, but I'm seeing signs that what I'm doing is somewhat working. And that's where like the two concepts kind of branch off. For me personally, like knowing the law, I can't sit here and tell you guys that it's like, no, don't think that way, don't do that. And if you do that, that's wrong. Because if just you living like that with that perspective allows you to kind of be not really bothered, I guess I should say, by the 3D, but more so not bothered by everything else around you, then there's nothing wrong with that. So if it helps you to look at it like that, then I say go for it, right? And if it helps you to see things as, oh, I see things that are now reflecting the changes I've been returning to on the inside, and therefore it must mean what I'm doing is working. If that is kind of like your perspective and it makes you feel good and it allows you to return to the wish fulfilled, and more importantly, like a sense of expectancy because of what you're doing must be working, therefore you're having faith now, then I cannot sit here and claim to be someone that's teaching the law and trying to pass knowledge on to others and then tell you, no, that's wrong, don't do that. Even though technically it's not taught by the ancients to do that. But technically, like what the ancients do agree on is that if that works for you, then it works for you, right? Because it's where you put your awareness that matters, right? So that's my whole thought on birds before land. I don't really look for signs. I don't really care for them. And if I see them, all I personally do is I just start understanding, hey, wait a second. Okay, it's reflective of what I'm doing, right? Clearly, I've been making changes and I've changed. And just how I mentioned in the example of if it works for you, then do it. I'm very similar, right? It's kind of like, okay, I know why this is happening. It's because I'm making changes. But in general, like I know for a fact that all the evidence will follow once I fully change. And I understand that anything until I get the end result is technically just part of the bridge or part of what I need to get through, right? Because I'm still changing my beliefs. But once I fully change it, that's when it comes in that day, right? So we're going to move on to question number 4 now. And the question is, how do I differentiate between a natural state and a state of lack? For example, when analyzing my manifestation process, which state is that? Okay, so for the first question, right, I'm a little confused when I was trying to answer it. The first part of the question doesn't really connect in my mind to like the second part, because you asked, how do you differentiate between a lack state and a natural state? And then the follow-up that's connected to it was pretty much asking, when you analyze yourself, what state is that? And it's like, first things first, a natural state is just neutrality, right? So right now I'm sitting here and I don't feel hatred, but I don't feel, the opposite of it. I don't feel joy. I don't feel sadness. I don't feel love. I don't feel unloved. I just am. I'm very neutral. I'm not having any emotional reactions to anything right now. Other than that, I'm just myself. And right now I would call this a neutral state of consciousness. I just am. I'm just existing. And a state of lack is obviously a state of lack. So if I was manifesting something and now I'm sitting here having emotional, reactions negatively to recognizing that I'm lacking something. And let's say it's a SP. So it's I miss SP so much and whatever else. So now I'm sitting here upset that I don't have them. And now I'm sitting in my own misery. That's a state of lack. Or if I'm just sitting here continuing focusing on the old story or past arguments and reinfecting myself with the past, which has 0% benefit, by the way, then same thing. That's a state of lack, right? And so that's the difference between neutrality and lack, right? And when you're analyzing your manifestation process, because the way you worded the question on the YouTube comment, I wasn't sure if you're asking me. Like, I'm not in a specific state that I chose. I'm just in a state of, I'm analyzing, that's it. And once I analyze and I get the full picture, then I decide, okay, what play do I want to make from here, right? I can literally go anywhere I want. Where do I want to go? Because remember, in imagination, nobody can take anything from you, right? It's all about what you want and what experience you wish to have and having it the way that you want it. So enjoy yourself in imagination and just know that nothing can take anything away from you, okay? So I kind of hope that answered your question, and we're going to go on to the next question, which is question number 5. Why do some teachers say that thinking too often about our SP keeps them away because we always want it? They say we have to imagine it through meditation, visualization, etc., and then let it go. Stop thinking about our SP or they will never come back if we keep wanting it. I don't understand. If we are told to persist, why forget? How do I not think about a person who is in my heart and mind 24/7? Okay, so we'll break it down because there's a lot of little things to kind of touch on there, a lot of little mini questions within it. So why do some teachers say that thinking too much about their SP keeps them away? And it's because you always want it, like that's the reasoning that you said. So first things first, right? Anybody that's teaching the law, like keep in mind, they're all teaching through their experiences. And that includes me, right? I'm teaching you through my experiences. But for example, myself, the way that I teach is I went to the sources. So I discovered the law of assumption, right? And I obviously was lucky enough to stumble upon Neville. And when I stumbled upon Neville, I started asking myself, okay, who are the best of the best to learn this from? And where can I get their work? Because I'm very logical, right? I don't want to learn from some watered down person who didn't read the books. If I'm going to learn something, it's going to be from the best minds that have spoken about it. So I did my research, and thankfully the first author I found happened to be Neville. So therefore I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll just go through his stuff first. And then I started branching out. But it's like I saw what was in the books and then I applied it. I tested it with full open-mindedness and no expectation within 30 days. I just knew something might or would happen, whether it was good or bad, and that will be my evidence. And I was open-minded to it. So when I did that, then I got my results, and then I started reverse engineering everything that I did, compared it to what I read in the books, and then, long story short, started developing my own way of things, kept studying for years and years, and now I'm sitting here, right? And that's my experience. So I'm teaching you what works for me because I read it from the books, from the greats. I then applied it, and then I'll give you my perspective, my opinion through experiences. So they're doing the same thing. They're literally doing what they know how to do and the only way they know how to do it. So I don't blame people that like say that, and I'm not going to bash anyone that has said that to you or taught that to others, because it's not like a personal thing. It's not like their intention is to mislead you, right? But one thing I will say is, if you're charging money and you're taking money from people, I wholeheartedly believe it should be your responsibility to learn from the best sources you can find on this planet. And they're not on YouTube, I can tell you that much. And like, you guys are so lucky you have me, because I'm teaching you from the best sources. But even then, I'm just watered down compared to them, right? But just remember that. So the source that you learn from is always going to be priority, number one, right? If you're learning from a crappy source, you're going to get crappy results, just period. So anyways, people say that because that's all they know. Is it true? No, right? It's like, think about it for me. I'm someone that whenever I manifest an SP, like, they're on my mind 24/7. I kid you not, from when I wake up to when I fall asleep, they are literally on my mind, like in the back of my head. It doesn't matter if I'm doing some work, business stuff, I'm going out for a walk, eating with friends at a restaurant, shopping, you name it, doesn't matter. They're with me 24/7, whether I want them or not. So that being said, I understand that this is a blessing for me. See, I don't think of it like, oh, if I keep thinking of them, it's going to be an issue. No, I understand there's moments throughout the day, from when I'm awake to when I sleep, that I'm going to want to fulfill myself. And when those moments arise, I do it instantly, and I do it with as much intensity as I wish. And when I don't feel like doing that, even if they're on my mind, I just understand, let's not react emotionally. Let's not, in other words, let's not identify with negative things, right? Because when you start believing things, you identify with it, then you unlock all the emotions that come with it, right? That's just how it works, because emotion follows the belief. It's not the other way around, as Seth says, right? So just remember that. It's as simple as, you can think about them all you want, but just make sure what you're thinking of benefits you. So if I'm thinking of my person, I'm not thinking of them as, oh, I'm still trying to get them, and I hope I get them, and when will it work? Those things don't pass my mind. Instead, when I think of them, it's more so I just smile, because I know it's only a matter of time, and that's it. I just like move on. Like, and if they're still on my head after that, I just make sure I don't identify with anything negative. It's okay that they're on my mind, and if I don't feel like fulfilling myself when they're on my mind, it's okay. I just don't do it. But I just stay aware, and that, in other words, I just stay aware of what I'm reacting to. And I just make sure I stay neutral if I'm not in the mood to fulfill myself. But if I am in the mood, like I mentioned, I then give it to myself. I experience it. If I want to hold hands, I'll hold hands. If I want to feel what the moment would feel like for us to be cuddled watching a movie, then we'll do it. If I want to see what it'll feel like to land at an airport, and let's say they were going to meet me there as an example, for whatever reason, and then we embrace, how loving and sweet would that be? Or getting flowers and surprising them, things like this, and seeing their reaction. Like, these are the things I experience. So that's what you should kind of focus on. Don't worry about how much you think of your person. Use it as a blessing, right? Because that's what it is. It's literally a blessing. When you have something on your mind constantly, like I do as an example, whenever I want anything, it's not a negative. It's literally a blessing, because, like I said, it's a built-in cheat code, right? You can literally just use it to return to the new identity you want when you crave it. And then when you're not craving it, like I said, neutrality. Just be at ease, understand it's a done deal, and just live your life, and just know if as long as I'm not reacting to negative things, I'm good to go. And then you'll be set. So just make sure that you keep that really in the back of your mind, that it's okay to think about your person, but what matters is, what are you doing with your person in your mind constantly, okay? And the other question you asked for the other part of your comment was, why do some advise us to not manifest a specific person, but to be general, saying that the universe knows better than us, knows better of what suits us. Sorry about that. And that's a great question. And I've seen a lot of people say that as well. And I knowing what I know, I can only say it makes sense that they just haven't read what I've read. Because if you've studied what I've studied, and you've seen what I've seen, and you've tested what I've tested, you're not really going to come to the conclusion of, yeah, you shouldn't manifest people. The universe knows better. It never really comes to that conclusion. You understand, when you see so many different religions and texts and ancients all agree, and even, sources from the other side, Seth as an example, and they're telling you these things, probable realities, and these things that you want to experience are there, and they're already created, and they're all possibilities, then how on earth could I sit there and tell someone, no, God has just created you, and you're supposed to have these desires, And some of them you'll never be able to fulfill, but some of them you'll never know which ones you can or can't fulfill. Like, what kind of a God would that be? Like, I would love to have a talk with a God like that if that's the case, right? Because I would genuinely love to know the logic of like, what's the whole point of that? To me, that seems like like torture. It seems like an unloving God, right? And that's not the God that I know, right? And I've never seen Neville mention what you're mentioning, right? As an example of, just let the universe do it. No, Neville has plenty of stories where people wanted a specific husband or a specific wife, and he himself had a specific person in mind, which is why he started manifesting that, his next partner, and then he had to go to court to plea with the judge and talk with the judge to not arrest the mother and make a bad name out of her because, it's his wife and so on and so on. And then that led to her signing the papers for the divorce, which got him the wife he wanted. So once again, when you read the books and you see stuff like that, it just bounces off because you understand, they just haven't read. The person saying this just hasn't read that yet. And that's okay. Whether they learn only off YouTube or whatever, that's just part of their journey. Maybe one day they'll wake up and they'll realize like, hey, you know what? It'll benefit my clients that I'm charging money for if I learn as much as possible. So let me just see where all these other people learn from, right? And that's the case, right? And let's all view that happening. And if you focus on that and you believe that, guess what? You'll start seeing that too. And your personal reality, that is. So just remember that. It's not about the universe knowing better for you. Yes, always, if you just go general, you will get what you needed, right? Especially when it comes to love. Like when you start just focusing on feeling loved and you realize like, I don't care if it's a specific person or not, you'll be okay. Like you'll be at peace with it because you'll realize the thing that comes with is going to match that frequency. It's going to match that belief, that feeling of love, the emotion of love. And if it matches it, then you're really not going to care. Like think about it. Think of the last person that ever made you feel amazing. Like even if it's a person you're manifesting now and how you right now believe that there's no way you'll ever find anyone that will replace them, will be better than them or compete in any way, right? And you're all thinking like, yeah, that's my person and so on and so on. Okay, but what if I told you that some people on this planet, especially people that I work with, some of them are genuinely okay being like, you know what? I get that person makes me feel that way, but I also understand other people can make me feel that way and better. So they start focusing on just feeling love in general. And because they're not conditioning it so hard and holding it, white knuckling it, it comes to them a little easier because, like I said, they're just open in general, right? But if you're focusing on a specific person, you really got to buckle down, especially if it's someone you have history with. You have to buckle down on your mental decisions. So no, don't worry about the universe, deciding for you when you can't manifest specific people. Just throw that out the window and understand a lot of the stuff you're going to hear on the internet, sadly, is coming from people that haven't really studied the ancients and then looked at all the things said across all of them, compared notes, saw patterns, and realized, okay, they all agree on these things and they all disagree on these things. Somebody's got to give, right? And like I said, it's okay, but just the more you understand, this is why I teach you guys this, because you're able to then spot it. So when you start seeing something that isn't true, instead of having to like wait for me to debunk it or having to read all these books yourself, at least you'll be able to spot like, oh, wait a minute, Michael said that. And that came from this book and this chapter, this page, and that makes sense. And the way he explained it, like you'll be able to do that and you'll be able to say, okay, I don't want to learn from that person. And you'll be able to kind of be picky of who you take information from, okay? And the other question was, when manifesting money, how do I navigate unpleasant 3D money experiences, like not being able to afford or pay for what I need right now? Okay, so if you're dealing with 3D and money, right, that's the toughest part because a lot of the times people... And like for me, like I used to be like broke years ago. And I completely understand when you guys are dealing with money and you have to pay for things and you're already worried about money and then you're trying to manifest it. I get it. But you got to understand, it doesn't matter how bad the 3D is currently and what the circumstances are. If you right now have no choice but to spend money on something and you're trying to manifest out of being, poor or suffering, then you have to spend that money regardless, right? So there's so many, like my head right now, so many things I want to like different directions because there's so many angles to look at this from. You guys have no idea. Like my brain just like slices things apart and it just like highlights them in my brain. It's weird. Like it does it for me. And one of the slices I want to talk about is a perspective. So a perspective is that when you're spending money, like I mentioned, and you have no choice but to spend it, don't do it with sadness. Don't do it with misery. Don't do it with lack. Do it understanding that, hey, because I have to spend this no matter what, And yes, it's going to make me a little more broke, but I have to. Like, it's a necessity. Therefore, I would have had to spend it regardless, that I may as well make the best of it. And that's when you start practicing your reactions to spending money in those moments, right? You start spending money, and in that moment, you slip into, what would it feel like if I had like 100 times what I do in my bank account right now? As an example, right? You don't have to use that, but what if that was the case? And then you start identifying, what if I was actually wealthy? The amount of wealth that you wanted, where this was like a penny to me. And imagine paying as that person, right? How would that feel? So keep that in mind, and that's one way you want to practice. So another slice, another perspective that I want to touch on is, if you don't have the money and something is being able, like, have to be paid. In those cases, like I tell people, look, there's nothing you can do. Like, in certain situations regarding finances, if you can't pay for something, then you can't pay for something. There's nothing you can do other than start focusing on the end solution. And I know it's easier said than done, but I'm telling you, as a person that understands the law, and keep in mind, I'm still a student of the law. When I say I understand the law, I'm not sitting here, I don't want you guys thinking, oh, I'm better than everyone and I know more than everyone and, you know, I understand the law and you guys don't. No, it's just I understand it on a different level. That's all. And, you know, you guys will get to the same place if you kind of invest in yourself the way I do, right? And I'm a student of life. I'm a student of the game. I study this stuff daily. Trust me. Like, if I'm studying this daily, then it's like, what excuse do you guys have, right? Like, if I know what I know and I'm still studying daily, you can't tell me you want your stuff and you're not investing in yourself either, right? But anyways, so it's like, when you understand that you have to pay, but you don't have the money, then you understand from reading so much material and really applying it and seeing the evidence of it, you realize, okay, then this is the part where I have to really buckle down. I really have to decide enough is enough, because if I'm in such a position where I'm screwed, like I have to pay for something I don't have money for, then guess what's going to happen, right? You're going to keep focusing on the negative and you're going to keep manifesting being in that position again and again. Instead, what makes more sense is, hey, wait a minute. If I want the results to change as soon as possible, I got to start living by the law as soon as possible. That means every time I think of the money situation, I go straight to the preferred situation. Every time I catch my awareness on the problem, I take the awareness off of it, and I understand why I'm taking off of it, which if you watch my video, especially my last couple, you'll realize it's because you're taking the awareness off the problem to allow it to dissolve, to allow it to wither and die, as Neville says. And when you realize, okay, now that I've taken the awareness of the problem, I've chosen to not react to it, and I've chosen to understand why I don't have to react to it, I can then start embodying what it would feel like to have the solution instead, because I understand now that it makes more sense, because you're identifying with the reality where the solutions are already manifested. Because remember, everything is manifested now here all at once, right? Everything is here all at once. It's not like you're kind of, you think of even reincarnational lives, right? And Seth touches on this too. It's like people think that, like, oh, we have to die and then we come back. Like, no, even your reincarnational lives are all existing now, right? It's like a give and take. So when you do things in a different life, it gives and takes, and change your beliefs. It gives and takes from other places too, right? Just how you can draw from skills you have from other versions and other realities of yourself, you can draw from those and bring it to yourself. So oftentimes when someone is really good at something today, like in this world, there's a good chance that they were that in a different, in a different life, and Seth actually talks about that too, which is pretty cool. So just understand that it's all about understanding. When you're in a money situation and you desperately need money, that's when you buckle up. That's when you say enough is enough. I'm not wasting time. I'm taking the awareness off the problems. And I understand continued awareness on the problem is going to continue the problem being in my awareness, meaning it's going to stay in my reality. So therefore, it's going to always be in my mind. By understanding, yes, I know it sucks. Yes, I know I got here because my beliefs led me here. Nothing is happening to me. I am the cause of it all. But because you understand this, you realize, okay, if I start focusing on being the solution now, then it makes zero sense for me to fear the negative, knowing that being the solution now and returning to that to the point that it becomes natural is going to solve my problems. It makes no sense to return to the negative if I know that doing that is going to delay my problems being solved. Like, do you get what I mean? I want you to really understand that it's literally about understanding that your problems and your continued awareness of the problem is the only reason why things stay the same. This applies for SPs, this applies for money, this applies for health, this applies anything. The more you spend time returning and experiencing and embodying the state of the person who has the solution, whether it's any of the things I listed, right? Whether you do that or you don't, it depends your results. So if you do the first part, which is the good part, you keep identifying, that's going to be your experience. And because it's going to be so natural, because you keep returning to it, that it's just who you are, it's going to be your experience. But if you choose to be like, okay, I know that I'm supposed to feel like I have the solutions when I think of my problems, and I know I'm supposed to observe the 3D because I understand it's the past, and I understand that it's the old me being reflected, and if I change myself, when that happens, the 3D will will inevitably catch up, and fast, I should say. Then how can I sit here if I know all these things and then decide, okay, I'm going to still be upset I don't have money. I'm going to still focus on, oh no, but where's the money going to come from? No. Are you smarter than God? Yes or no? Do you really think you're smarter than Source? The answer is no. I really hope you said no. If you said yes, oh my God. But it's like, no, we're not, right? Of course, Source knows more than we do because we are in human form, right? We're all connected. We're all one. We all come from the same source. It's just we don't have the access that we will when we die and we go back to, in other words, we wake up. We're our true form, which is our entity, our spirit, our soul. So in this human form, we can't tap into that. Not directly, but you have something in you that has those answers. And that thing in you is a lot smarter than you and I. So if you're like me and you trust that thing, you trust God, you trust Source, and you know that it's smarter than you, and you know that there's no problem you can bring it that it can't solve, then like me, it makes zero sense to continue to focus on the money issues or whatever issues you have if you know these rules. And yes, I understand, especially when it comes to certain goals, it's a lot easier said than done. But when you're ready to forgive the 3D and the past, trust me, that part afterwards then becomes easy. But without forgiveness, then yes, I completely understand. And I do agree that it's going to be hard for a lot of people if that's the case. Because if you can't forgive your old 3D, your old past and the things that you've manifested, then you're going to be stuck returning to them, which is going to keep them in your view, which is going to keep you in that cycle of spiraling, right? Which is something I covered in, I think it was actually my last video, that cycle. So that's exactly what I was referring to in that video. It's this cycle that everyone falls into. So that being said, leave any questions you want answered in the next Q&A. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video, and bodystate.com if you need any questions. If you need any coaching, I should say. And feel free to ask me any questions there as well. So that being said, I'll let you all go. Thanks for all the likes and all the new subscribers. Welcome home. And I'm excited to drop the next video. Take care, guys.